Welcome to the Conservation Learning Center's 2020 Virtual Field Day. We are releasing a series of videos that showcase some of our current research and demonstration here on site. Thank you to our Field Day sponsors, the Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission and the Saskatchewan Flax Development Commission, as well as all of our other funders who support research here on site. This trial is looking at the Optimum Agronomic package and nitrogen fertilizer recommendations for new malt barley varieties. This is a multi-year project that was funded through the Strategic Field Program that's made possible through the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, as well as the Sask Barley Development Commission and Canadian Malting Barley Technical Centre. Today we have Japp here with us, who is the Provincial Specialist of Cereal Crops with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture.
Malt barley, combined with water, hops, and yeast, makes beer. As a crop rotational option, malt barley is sometimes perceived as one that can't have the same agronomic tools applied to it in order to get the high yields, because producers are worried about having too high a protein or inducing lodging in their crops when they get the nitrogen rate too high, when they push for those really high yields. Right now we're in a bit of a transition period. AC Metcalf has gone by the wayside. It was the industry standard for a long time, at least a decade. CDC Copeland is still there, it's very predominant, but it's a 20-year-old variety. And so it's likely going to be on the way out in the next few years. So we've got some new, very high-yielding, disease-resistant varieties that are available to producers. They've got better resistance to lodging. And so producers will have the option to take some of the research that was done on seeding rate, fertility, and fungicide application on their barley to be able to really drive their yields in order to get higher yields and more profitable malt barley production. So we took that research and we thought, what happens if we start stacking all those different agronomic tools into some of the newer varieties? So we kept with the old standard. AC Metcalf is still in the trial, so producers can compare treatments that are more similar to what they're seeing on their own farm if they're growing malt barley already, and adding in some of these different practices so that we can look and see how an older variety like AC Metcalf responds and compare it to how newer varieties like AAC Synergy and CDC Bow can respond as well. So AAC Synergy has been amongst the highest yielding barley varieties in our seed guide for the last several years. It competes directly with the top yielding feed varieties like CDC Austenson. So I'll walk you through some of the treatments that we've applied here. So we've got I'll focus on the AAC Synergy. It's that high yielding variety. Pretty good disease resistance package overall. Their base treatment that we've got here, 90 kilograms nitrogen per hectare, 15 kilograms phosphate per hectare, no potash going on there, no potassium. It's got no seed treatment, and it's going with a more historically familiar 200 seeds per meter squared seeding rate, which will probably generate somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 plants per meter squared, maybe 175. Then we add to that 30 kilograms nitrogen per hectare and add in a little bit of potassium. So those treatments there, they're doing okay, but they're not quite as good as what we see across the trial. We keep moving along here. We're adding in a seed treatment. I should say that we bumped up to the 300 seeds per meter squared in the second treatment. So we're also up with the nitrogen and fertility. We added seeds there as well. So everything else will be 300 seeds per meter squared. We add the seed treatment in, and then get over here. If a producer was to look at that information that was generated about a decade ago by Ag Canada, and they decided they want to try and bump things up a little bit, we thought, what would they do? They might look at the seeding rate, because that's relatively inexpensive add-on for producers to go to that little higher seeding rate. The higher seeding rate really has good benefits in decreasing protein, so you can push the nitrogen a little bit more and go with those higher yielding varieties and get more responsiveness and potential higher yield and higher profitability. So seeding rate's a really good one, fairly cheap tool to add on to be able to drive for those higher yields. So I thought they might do that. They might not be ready to jump on the fertility though, and so those trials, they tended to show 90 kilograms per hectare as generally the most responsive. My take on that is they're on pretty productive land, and so their end supply rate might be pretty high. And so that's why we bumped up to the 120. There was some of the sites in those trials that showed a response up to 120, so we thought we want to include that, especially because we've got higher yielding varieties in here than what they were using 10, 15 years ago. And so this, of course, has a seed treatment on it, and this is going to be the first of the treatments where we're adding a fungicide for Fusarium head blight timing. This treatment here, not much different from what we thought was maybe what the farmer would take from that research and apply. We bumped up the nitrogen rate. It's the same as we had 2 treatments ago, but this one, like the previous one, where we thought would be the farmer practice adopted from those research trials, this one has the Fusarium head blight timing fungicide. Go over here, we've added in a plant growth regulator. So plant growth regulator can reduce your height, reduce your likelihood of having lodging occur, and so that's a reasonable practice, particularly when you're driving for those higher yields. And our final treatment, kind of the same as that one, the only thing we've added in here is a fungicide timing at flag leaf to control for leaf disease. You know, as it happens here this year, we're not seeing much for leaf disease showing up, so not necessarily expecting that one's going to be responsive. And really the research didn't show that anyway. It found that normally, except under really high disease pressure, that Fusarium head blight timing was adequate for leaf disease and Fusarium head blight. So this one is probably your maximal trial, your barley max, not necessarily expecting it to be the most economical. So this trial is going to be running here at the Conservation Learning Center. There's 4 other locations growing this trial. Wheatland Conservation Area at Swift Current, Western Applied Research Corporation at Scott, Northeast Ag Research Foundation at Melford, and the East Central Research Farm at Yorkton. And so we're combining all that data from these trials this year and the next 2 years, so 3-year total, to see what is the most responsive for the old standard AC Metcalf, new up and coming, second highest acre barley variety out there, a Malt Barley Varieties, AC Synergy, and up-and-comer CDC Bow, all of which are kind of representative of the next wave of barley varieties that producers will have available to them.